Okay, so my name's Jenna Hendricks. I'll be your moderator for today. And we have got some fantastic romance authors here for you that specialize in what we're all here for, the cowboys. So let's start with, we have Vicki Thompson, who is a New York Times bestselling author. Next to her is Payton Banks, who is a USA Today bestselling author. Then we have Paulson, who is a USA Today bestseller, and Elana Johnson, who is a USA Today bestseller. But the interesting thing is we've got various levels of steam here. So we go from clean to nice and spicy, and everything in between. So I'm going to go ahead and start with the first question. I have a bunch of questions to ask, and then at the end, if you all have questions, we'll ask that you line up in front of this microphone over here and ask your questions there, but not until we're done with answering my questions. Okay, so my first question is just basically to get everybody started. What was it that prompted you to write cowboy romance or Western romance? We'll start right here.
Well, I live in Arizona, and I see a lot of really good-looking cowboys. And I've always been crazy about the whole Western thing. And when I was a little girl, I would run around with my cap gun and my cowboy hat and my boots and pretend I was shooting bad guys. And I watched all the Western TV serials. So when Chris Fox said, write what you loved when you were 8, that would be Westerns. So that's my answer.
I will have to say for me, it started with an idea. I had an idea for a second chance. I had an idea for a second chance romance, and for some reason, just a cowboy was just like screaming in my ear, like, that's my story, that's my story. And so that one idea led to a 6-book series, a whole world that I built that I will be expanding. And even as I was younger, you remember when those like the Red Harlequin books was like all the rage? You can get at the library for like how you can fit in the garbage bag for $1.
Yeah.
Most of mine were Western romances, historical ones, contemporary for back in the 90s and stuff. And so I've always had a love for cowboys in the back of my heart. And so it was finally time for me to put it on paper.
This one worked. So my grandfather actually wanted to read my books, and he said, I don't read anything but Louis L'Amour, so can you write a Western romance? I was like, all right. And then I was like, oh, I love cowboys. They're so fun. And so thanks, Grandpa.
That's awesome. I grew up in a really, really small town, but I live in the city, and I love city life. So really, my cowboy romance came out of my dark period. So if you came to the panel I did yesterday, I talked about this dark period in my author life where I was like, I'm gonna quit, I'm gonna quit, I'm gonna quit. And I wanted something that was just for me. And even to this day, I write things just for me that are not meant for publication or are really just for me to write through therapy, because writing is therapy for me. And so as I was kind of doing that, I thought, what is just for me? And I was in a critique group, and all of them were romance writers except for me. I was writing these YA dystopian novels, and so I was reading a lot of their romance. And this is not meant to be bad, but I was really rude to them because it was bad. And I literally was like, why would you write romance? It's so predictable. They all end the same way. And they were like, well, why don't you try it? And so I did, and I was really bad at it. I wrote like 3 or 4, and they were like, no, he's too perfect. No, they have to meet this time. No. Like, I had to learn how to write it. And finally, one of my critique partners said, what do you really love? Like, because as romance readers, we love the heroes. And I was like, well, I really like cowboys. And they're like, write a cowboy. And so I did. I was like, I will write a cowboy.
Right.
I will.
Not right.
Right. With a T-E. Thank you, Bonnie. And then I had another friend who was like, you should really write some cowboy romances. I saw her at a conference. And then I was like, so I have like a cheat group telling me this and another friend telling me this, and it was sort of like this validation to do it. And so I did.
Okay, just for clarification, Bonnie and Elena are our clean romance writers, not our spicy ones. So,
Not that these are dirty. It's sweet and steamy.
yes.
Oh, Payton said hers are dirty. What?
Oh, Payton, yours are dirty? Really? Well,
Where's my phone? I'm buying one right now.
So, and Bonnie is a clean author, but sometimes she takes things just a step too far.
I don't know. I don't have boundaries. No boundaries. It's fine.
okay.
Cowboys are my king. That's your new tagline.
Oh my gosh. I hope I'm not like blushing right now, but okay, so, okay, next question is about Kindle Unlimited. I think you all are in Kindle Unlimited, but you also bounce in and out. No, you're not strictly in Kindle Unlimited. Okay. Yeah, some of you bounce in and out. So, okay, so for those of you who aren't in Kindle Unlimited or you bounce in and out, how do you find your Western romance readers outside of KU?
Well, they're everywhere. I advertise through all the major advertising e-zines, and there's buttons for all the other retailers, and they're cowboy readers, cowboy romance readers in all of them. So it's advertising basically, but they're there.
Is there one retailer that's better for Western or cowboy romance?
Amazon's better for everything, I think. I don't, I sell a lot on Amazon, but I also sell on Apple and B&N, a little bit on Kobo, so yeah, and a little bit on Google.
Personally, I think you can find your audience anywhere. This is actually one of my specialties, so it depends on where you target. So if you target a little bit farther like that, okay. Straight out, far. Okay. So sorry, I'm getting lessons on how to use a mic. So I think personally it just comes down to your targeting. So if you're not selling as well on Apple, then you would specifically target Apple, right? Like you would be hashtagging the crap out of Apple and iBook, because it's still a hashtag. It's still a interest group like in Facebook. It is still there, but they want to be called Apple, right? They want to be called Apple Books, but they still have the groups that are referenced in Facebook as iBooks. When you hashtag iBook, you want to hashtag your Apple, you want to hashtag Mac user. So there's like a lot of things that you can actually target. So if you're saying, oh, I don't sell as many on Google, well then you need to really target the Google audience. If you're really wanting to focus on Barnes & Noble, then target the crud out of your Nook. It's because they're there. Or because if they weren't there, then those stores would not be open. Those retailers would not be there. So when people say, I can't make money wide or whatever, that's not it. What it is you're not finding the readers that are keeping those retailers open and making money. Sorry.
No, I totally agree with Bonnie. It's going to be a smaller group of readers who are reading on Nook because it's simply a smaller group of readers. But they're there, and they do read. So my number one retailer is Amazon. My number two retailer is Nook for my cowboys. My beach romances, my number two retailer is Apple. So some retailers are a little bit genre specific, and when you are wide, you can find those sort of trends for yourself. But I do use all of the retailer hashtags when I'm partnering with them. I call it partnering with them because that's what we're doing. We're partnering with those retailers to sell our books and get our books into the hands of their readers. I use their logos on all of my social media, and I run retailer-specific promotions as well. So I will discount books on Nook using their promotions dashboard, and then promote that to my newsletter, which I also segment and ask them, where do you read? So I am trying to find who I can talk to who reads on Nook before I'm ready to sell to them. So, and then I'm like, oh, I know who reads on Nook because I asked them in my newsletter, and I have a segment for Nook. And then I can target to those people. And I've done buy one, get ones on Nook, which is a coupon. It's not even a coupon. You set it up in the dashboard, and there's no coupon required. They put your books in the cart, and it goes, put 2 in and 1 goes free. So you can do all kinds of promotions and things like that with the other retailers. And that's how I've been growing my wide audience outside of Amazon. Another thing I do is direct sales and trying to get them to buy directly from me. And it's the same thing. I'm using all the links and all the buttons that Vicki talked about, but I don't try to push 6 things at once. I try to push 1 thing at once. So if I'm trying to sell in KU, that's easy, it's 1 thing. If I'm trying to sell on Nook, I try to sell on Nook. I don't try to sell on Nook and Apple and Kobo and Google Play and my direct store and, oh, it's on Amazon too. I really focus on, as Bonnie said, Nook or Kobo or whatever. So I'm always looking for promotional opportunities. I'm always gathering together with other wide authors to do promotions with them so that we can share our audiences. They might have a bigger audience at Nook than I do or at Apple than I do, and I want to capitalize on anything like that that I can. And I've talked for a long time, so I will stop.
Okay, so YouTube has been a really big topic so far this week, and audiobooks. I know at least 2 of you have really good YouTube channels, but I don't know if all of you do. Can you talk to us a little bit about your YouTube and what you put on your YouTube?
I do not do YouTube. So sorry. I'm spending a lot of time listening to E-lay-nuh on this panel.
Okay, I'll go first. I have a YouTube channel, but I'm actually have it as my publishing as like a branch of my publishing company because I have 14 pen names. So, sorry, I feel like I'm French kissing this thing. So yeah, riding those cowboys. So I do like. I have 14 pen names, and so rather than trying to monetize 14 channels, because some of my names I'm going to retire, right? So, but I would like to have them all available. So some of them are narrated, and some of them are audio or are AI, and so I put them on my YouTube channel, and they all have playlists, right? So I could go into like a whole thing about that, but then what I do is I target. So if I'm like, okay, the best ones that YouTube is really enjoying for algorithms are my sweet German translations, my sweet Western German translations, and my apocalyptic thrillers, which I know is not this panel. But when YouTube picks up on an algorithm, that's the one that I target with my Facebook ads because it's worth it, right? I get conversion and it's really cheap because surprisingly people don't target YouTube. And so when I'm doing that and it's converting, I'm actually getting more money the more, because people are like, oh, look, this is a apocalyptic thriller. And then the other ones actually show up. So I can target, oh, if you're visiting my Cowboys, I can say, hey, this is the next video I want you to look at, number 2. Or let's look at this next one in the next series, which I have a bunch in my backlist. So, and then I know E-lay-nuh has a different process for doing her YouTube, but we're pretty similar. But I target with my, I target and I send ads to that because that's makes money for me, and it's free for the reader. Who doesn't like free? Or the listener?
I learned everything I know about YouTube from Bonnie, so I don't know why she says I'm doing it different than her. I also just have one channel. I'm not gonna separate out my only 4 pen names. Now I don't feel so bad. I only have 4. Mine's Feel Good Fiction books, and I put my beach romances and my cowboy romances and my women's fiction on my YouTube channel, and my cowboys do the best. I don't have any AI narrated audiobooks. All of mine are done through ACX, and I've paid for the narration. And as long as you pay for the narration or work it out that you own the rights, then you can put it up on YouTube. And I release a new audiobook every Friday, and I have a dedicated, you're going to be shocked. Are you ready for it? Audiobook newsletter. I feel like my theme of everything that I've said this week is I really lean into people who have opted in to lean into me, right? They've signed up for me. Like, they're leaning into me, and I'm like, okay, and now what do you like? Do you listen? Ebooks, paperbacks, what retailers? How fast do you read? How slow do you read? How often do you want emails? What's your favorite recipe? Like, I ask them all these really personal questions that give me data that helps me segment my list so that I can then sell to them in the way that I can get the way that they want, right? If they tell me they're an audiobook listener, then I'm gonna give them audiobooks. I'm not gonna give them hardcovers. If they tell me they're an audiobook listener and a hardcover person, then I will give them both at the appropriate time. But I have a dedicated audiobook newsletter that goes out every Friday because I release my YouTube videos every Friday. Because I have a metric ton of audio. I have over 100 audiobooks at the moment. So I am a little unique in that regard that I have quite a lot. I've only split up some of my really long women's fiction 12-hour audiobooks. I split those up into 3 parts. Otherwise, the entire audiobook goes up at once. I'm doing a lot of hashtags like Bonnie talked about. I'm putting in anything I can to sort of tickle the algorithm and get that showing. And my channel is monetized, so it's just one more way for me to make back that audiobook investment. Is that what you wanted to know? Okay.
That was fantastic. Thank you guys, or ladies, I should say. But what about book clubs? Amazon recently started this book club option where anybody pretty much can begin a book club. Have any of you joined any of those or started a book club? Do your books show up in book clubs?
I saw that a few months ago, and I did start one, but have I went back to it really and tried to figure it out? Not yet, but I did make one, so at least I made a step towards it.
You're ahead of me.
I didn't do that. I formed my own book club on my own website because
Why give more to Amazon than they need?
I want to own everyone.
You own me.
Well, I don't want to own everyone, but I did start an Amazon book club, so that's why I put that question in here, because I was curious about it.
Yeah, Jenna.
Okay, so I started an Amazon book club that is for indie authors. I don't push my books through that channel. What I have done so far is pick out indie books that I like or that I have already either read or want to read. Some of them are friends of mine, some of them are people I've never even met before. Elena is in this month's book, actually, because it's that anthology, that Christmas one. So I'm doing that, and I do a weekly question in there, and I have a dedicated spot in my newsletter for it down at the bottom, and I ask people to go in and answer my questions. But I have to say, it's tough getting people to go in and respond. I get maybe 1 or 2, maybe 3 at most, people responding each week. So I don't know, but it's also really new. This is only my 3rd month doing it, and I do 1 book a month, so.
That's cool.
I didn't know if there was some other ideas.
Fascinating. I want to know how to even join it. I don't even know how to join an Amazon book club. Maybe you could put the link in like the 20Books group or something, and we can go check out what that even looks like.
Yeah, do.
Okay.
Yeah, do.
All right, yeah, I'll do it, because there is, it's actually at the top of any book page you go to. There'll be all those different options in the header, and one of them is Amazon book clubs, and you can go in there and you can see all the book clubs that they have, and they even have a filter for clean book clubs, clean romance. So, so mine focuses on indie. I think it's Jenna's Clean Indie Book Club or something like that. I don't remember the name, but anyways, so let's move on to the next question. So, with all of the cowboys, horses, ranches, farms, etc., in all of your books, where do you keep getting inspiration? I mean, people like Liz Isaacson, very prolific, lots and lots of books, and then Miss 14 pen names. Hello. I didn't even realize you had 14, Bonnie. Oh my goodness. Yeah, I don't even think I could remember 14 names.
I don't. I don't think I can.
So where do you continually, how do you continually refresh your imagination? Where do you get new ideas from? Because you don't want to keep writing the same things.
Well, first of all, I start with the characters, and every hero is a cowboy in my current iteration, but every hero is a different kind of cowboy. He may have a cowboy soul, but he is different in so many other ways, and the heroine is always a different person, and they are whole people, and I get to know them, and I feel as if they're walking around somewhere. And that's, to me, the secret. You're going to go through some of the same tropes, you're going to go through some of the same, what are there, 7 plots in all or something. You're going to repeat some of those things. The thing that makes each book different is the relationship between the two people. And that doesn't mean just cowboys, that's any romance you're going to write. And I've now written about 185. It took me 40 years to do that, where it took Elena like, how many years? Not very many, a month. But I have never gotten tired or felt, oh, I'm just repeating myself, oh, these stories are all alike. Never. And same with the love scenes. They're never the same. So I find that if you concentrate on the people, that's all you need to do.
I think same for me. One good thing about when you're writing about people on the ranch, there's plenty of people to pull from to be able to write stories about. So the way I had designed my world was I always do a rule of 3 because I want to make sure a series takes off. So I said I'll do 3 books at first and make sure this is good. So I started off with 3 brothers who are the heirs to, the largest ranch in Colorado. Their father is an ass. Oh, can I cuss? Their father is an ass, but, they have to deal with him. So, the trials of them dealing with their father and still trying to have one main goal of make sure that their ranch is successful. And then with each one of them, I drew off of their personalities. So for the first book was a second chance romance, where the oldest son, that was his story, getting back with someone he was with 10 years ago and hashing out what all went wrong, what happened, all that stuff. The second brother, he was always getting into it with the girl next door on the next ranch who was their rivals, and then we dig deep into why the 2 ranches were rivals and stuff. And so it was an enemies to lovers story. And then the third brother, digging into his personality, a main superstar just happens to be vacationing in their town, and now it's a rock star / country star romance, And so for each one, and then when I started diving into the ranch hands, because now the series is a success and everybody wants more, so now I got more people to pull from. And you've already met some of these people because, of course, everybody goes out drinking and, partying and, on the weekends. And so now you've already know other people, and now I'm pulling from them, and we'll start telling their stories. And then seeing how some people may have got to the town, be it, they're having a second chance at life, but not a second chance romance, and, starting over, stuff like that. And you're able to, build a whole world, and then everybody is getting connected with each character because of their backstory that you start learning in my previous stories, because you're getting to know everybody up front. I'm one of those authors where the series may continue, they're all standalones, but you still know what's going on with everybody else beforehand and continuing on, and you get updates, whose relationships have moved forward, who's married, who has kids. You're still seeing those other characters. So that way my readers fall in love with the whole entire series and want to know, hey, what happened to Parker and Maddie? Did they ever have a second kid yet? What happened? Stuff like that. And it helps push the series along, and it makes it to where it's easier to keep the series going, because then you're introducing everybody, and then now people are saying, well, hey, are you going to give the vet a story, because he's always around. So now if I want to keep going, maybe I can give the doc a story, So it's just how you build the world, and where everybody can get connected to it.
Okay, so you guys, you want to? No, good. Okay, sorry. You guys actually brought up a couple of different things that are in some of my future questions here. So, what are the key tropes in the cowboy romance genre?
He has to be a cowboy. Like, you can use any trope you want as long as the hero is a cowboy. I'm guessing. Somebody smarter than me answer this question.
I have a list here.
Ooh, nice.
Well,
Teacher's pet.
because I was afraid I'd go deer in the headlights and forget, and this was something I could. Anyway, you need to have a bar, at least in those of us who write spicy. You have to have a bar.
There's got to be a difference between the spicy and the clean here.
I don't know. I don't know about their drinking habits.
None of my cowboy romances have bars.
Okay, mine do.
Oh, Bonnie.
Mine have bars.
Oh.
So I don't think of clean as Christian. I think of clean, and I don't usually say clean. I say sweet, because I don't believe that sex is dirty. I don't believe that kink is dirty. I don't think that bad language is dirty. I just do sweet, right? So it's sweet, or it's inspirational, or it's maybe sweet and steamy. Like, you've seen all these different types of things, but I feel like we kind of lend a taboo to romances that are steamier and hotter and satisfying that reader that likes the heat. And I think we don't call salsa dirty and clean. So I don't want my books dirty and clean. So yeah, for me it's sweet, and mine have drinkers in them because that gives redemption, which I think is a huge trope that's important in the cowboy western, because everybody loves the bad boy, but especially when the bad boy turns good and he's like super delicious but sweet, like chocolate. I don't know. That's me. That's me.
Still be sweet and
Yes.
you can have both qualities.
Okay, so Vicki, did you have some more tropes to share?
Pictures of this.
I'm pumped. I have all of them, so I'm pumped.
I know.
So
I'm like,
that's
yeah, I got these.
So someone want to read those tropes off so that everyone else can get in on it? Because I want to know. I want to know.
Do you want me to read the list?
My list. All right, I can do without the list. It's mountains in many cases because we're writing in the West. A matriarch is usually important in the story. We have to have barns. We have to have horses. We have to have cowboys, obviously, and animals. Farm animals and fences. Those old wooden fences. Those are on, they're always fixing those fences. I don't know, things like that. A band of brothers, I think, is kind of important because usually I have my cowboys connected either biologically or just because of close friendships or an adoption situation to other men, other cowboys.
I want to talk to that one actually too, and I love that because the Band of Brothers is really good. Elena had, I can't remember if it was Liz or Elena, but she had this series where they were like ex-cons, and it was really interesting because the way it was written, because it was redemption and it was sweet. And I remember thinking, man, what an original way to have bad boys introduced into the into the sweet marketplace, clean marketplace, whatever, however you want to refer to it. But it was really interesting because it was like you're expecting one thing, and then it completely flipped what your expectation was in a great way. And so, yeah, the Band of Brothers, I agree. Or Band of Sisters sometimes works really great, too. So, but that camaraderie, that family feeling, I think is really important in Westerns. Saga.
Okay, so let's talk about book covers. So we've got the clean, sweet covers, and we've got the spicy, sexy covers. But I will say that clean can also have sexy on it. I've seen quite a few sexy cowboys with their shirts on. So, what is important for a cowboy cover? Can we have women on the cover? Can we have children on the cover? Does it have to have people on the cover? Talk about your covers.
Vicki has a list.
She does.
Okay, so I took a picture of her list because I want to make sure I'm doing this right. And so looking at it, I am doing this right. So on the cover, she says it has to be hot, has to have a cowboy, which all of mine do, rope, which book 2 does, rope and a cowboy. He literally has a rope on him. No, not that type. He may rope her in and bring her to him, but you know. Has the fence. I think almost all of mine have the fence. Barn, mountains, horse, and then she has sleigh. So I'm assuming that's for Christmas time for cowboys. So I think I'm doing it right. Mine basically has all of that. Some of them have their shirt completely off because, you know, steamy, you want the man chest. And then some of them may have it to where it's open, but they have their plaid shirt on. And they either all have their cowboy hat. I don't think they all have their cowboy hat. I have to think about it. I think all of them do. Yeah, all of mine do have a hat on them. So I think I did it right. I hit all her points.
It's a good list. I think if you're starting out, your cover should definitely have a cowboy with like a real hat, not like a straw hat or like a felt costume hat or a painted on hat. Like if you're starting in cowboy romance, you want a cowboy who looks like a cowboy, not wearing a cowboy costume. That would be my #1 requirement. I actually really dislike ropes. Like, I think, what hot dude is walking around without a shirt, but he's got this sexy rope? I'm like, I just don't like it. I get why it's on the genre, but when I request covers, I'm like, I don't want a cowboy with any ropes, straw hats, or guns. No whips, no accessories, plaid and hats, please. And like all the other accessories that you see, especially because stock photos are especially hard to find in Western, like they're extremely hard to find. I think I have one series of Cowboy Billionaires that I did where I used the same cover model in like 3 covers because he was wearing a maroon shirt and then a plaid shirt and then he had his head down. I was like, and you're on 3 covers, buddy, because there was all these different photo shoots. But I definitely think you want to start with a cowboy, or in the market right now, a barn landscaped is pretty popular. I think the more books you have, so some of us, you'll look at us and you'll go, Bonnie doesn't have that, or Elena doesn't have that. Because the more reputation you have in the market, the more you can break the rules. So that's important to know, because Liz can kind of do whatever Liz wants. Half the cover is her name. And it's not really because she's awesome, it's just because she has so many, and now she has a little bit of an audience, and I can literally take up the entire top half of the book with her name, and people are like, what's down there? Oh, it doesn't matter because Liz Isaacson writes cowboy romance, right? She writes the exact same thing over and over and over again. So when Jenna is like, you don't want to write the same thing over and over, I'm like, actually, you do. That is exactly what I want to do. I want to deliver the exact same reading experience again and again and again. But I think Vicki's answer was perfect, that we do that through creating real people, and every person is different. So Liz can do things a little bit different. So you'll find a series of Liz that only has a single woman. Would I recommend that you start your cowboy romance career with a single woman on the cover? No, I would not. I would not tell you to do that. I would tell you, put a couple where he's a cowboy, put some horses, put a fence, put some barns. You know, I would tell you to do that instead of a single woman. Couples, I think, are pretty standard and clean sweep. Maybe not for spicy, or a single cowboy, or your landscape is going to be your best bet for your Western covers.
Okay. Oh, yes. Thank you for the time warning. So now what we'll do is we'll go into the question and answer session. So if you have questions, please use that microphone right there and get close enough to the microphone where you're not kissing it, but maybe like you feel like you are.
Hear me? There you
we go.
go.
Now we go.
I'm Dakota LaCoy, and I have a question about Western as a category, because I have small town romance set in a small town, but the men are cowboys, they're Texans. So there is no barn, there is no fence. I mean, they've left the ranch and they've gone to the small town and they have careers within the small town, but they all wear cowboy hats and cowboy boots and big silver platter belts. So am I writing Western, or am I writing small town, or what am I writing?
I think you're writing Western.
But I would target both in your advertising efforts. So just to say that.
I would say a lot of people like small town. So if you have a Western or a cowboy guy who's a former cowboy, but maybe he's a sheriff in a small town, those are like 3 main things right there you can target. But small town is actually pretty big, so I would definitely focus on all of them.
Okay, so I write historical westerns though, so cowboys but not contemporary like you gals. And I love the Band of Brothers, which Payton had said, and you said that you started with 3 and then kind of just let it roll. So I'm starting a new series and I wanted to do 6, but it was kind of overwhelming. Do I just start with 3 or something and just kind of let those brothers become real characters along the way?
Yeah, the reason why I do that is because we all know, some readers may want to only buy the series when it's completed, which I a lot of times will tell readers, you've got to buy the books now, because if I don't know that you like the books, then I may not continue it. So that's why I said I'm gonna start off with just 3 books. Even though in my head I want to leave it open for a longer series, because we all know series sell. But this was my way to test the waters. It was my first time writing cowboys and westerns. I'm usually romantic suspense. I have a real popular SWAT series. So this was sort of left field for me. So I definitely wanted to try it out first before I put so much effort into it. Even though I really love this town. I created my own town. It's a small town. It's a ranch. All of the stuff I put into it, but I really wanted to make sure it took off before I put my heart and soul into it. So I will test it out first and do a few first, and then go off of your reader feedback and stuff, and then expand it.
I know that you all write contemporary cowboy stories, but going off of what the other person said, do you think that historical westerns will ever come back?
I have a client who writes historical romance, mail order, and holy crud. Yes, there's a huge demand. But here's the thing, you can write anything you want, but be consistent with your brand. Don't write historical Western romance and then be like, you know what, I'm gonna write a sci-fi space opera next under the same name, because that's where, that's where you will not be making any money. It just isn't gonna happen. I mean, you might, right?
Well, I'll tell you, there's an audience for you. There's an audience for all of us. You just have to find them. And I used to read historical westerns all the time. And there's people out there now, like even when I go to book events, they're asking, that's the first question I get asked about my cowboys. Is this historical or is this now? And I'm like, no, it's now. I'm sorry, honey, it's not historical. So they're out there, you just have to find them.
I think the market is like a roller coaster, and every genre and every trope is sometimes up and sometimes it's down. And if it's down, it's gonna come back up. And if it's up, you can better believe it's gonna go down. So you ride the pony while it's up, to speak in Western terms. And when it's down, you hold on tight. Like, that's what you do.
As far as extraneous topics that you can put in them, I found that, like when I was even trying to get the traditional market, sometimes the editors would say, you have too much going on. And, maybe somebody's got an illness and someone's coping with something else, they've inherited twins, blah, blah, blah. I had a couple things going on. So I've tried to pare back, but, okay, so like my first one, that someone was dealing with hearing loss, and then it was main character. And then now I've got one that's really, I'm considering that they're dealing with infertility, but they have to go to the hospital a couple times, they leave the farm to do that, but they're farm people, and all that. So good, bad, too deep?
No, not too deep. So I'm not gonna name any names, But I wrote this book that's supposed to be 65,000 words, and I don't know how you write a book that's 65,000 words where things don't happen. I mean, maybe you can do that, but things have to happen in 65,000 words. And for this company, and they rejected it because it was too complicated. And I was like, you know what, I'll show you complicated. And because that's almost like a challenge for Elena. And I moved into writing longer books, family sagas at that point. I will address anything at any point and make it part of their small town family life, because that is what we want. So what you're doing when you talk about, I feel strongly about this. Can you tell I have this look on my face? I can feel it. My eyes are like bugging. Anyway, I only have 15 more seconds. I feel like what I'm trying to do in my brand, and this might not be true for these ladies, but I'm trying to have a big dinner table that seats 12, and one chair is always open for the reader. Always. There is a spot for them to join me at the table. So I'm going to show them everything, good, bad, and ugly, and I'm going to let them come to the table and experience it with the characters so that they feel part of the family. That's what I want them to do. I would not dumb it down. I would not take anything out that does not allow them to feel like they can pull up the chair and go, wow, I trust these people. I love these people. People we love and trust, we share hard things with.
Thank you.
Yeah, so I'm working on a Western rom-com, and I was just wondering, like, what you guys feel about, like, those illustrated covers, because I know that they're, like, really popular and everything. So I guess that's what my question is and everything.
I think for a rom-com, the illustrated would be perfect. Because honestly, for me as a reader, when I see those, I'm thinking immediately rom-com. So if you can get some type of cowboy put on there, and some silly antics on there, something that will definitely hit your story, right. I think that'd be gold.
Okay. Wonderful, thank you.
And sorry, I've been buying all those because I want the cowboy characters.
Right, they're so addicting to buy, right? Like they're.
I have a sickness. I'm in therapy.
So I read Western romance long before I actually wrote it. And in my mind, I'm from West Texas. When I wrote it, I'm like, okay, these aren't cowboys, right? So I started writing it, and then I realized why. To let ranch life can take over the whole book and the whole story very easily. And I'm just wondering how you find a balance of getting enough, because I didn't. In the end, I kind of abandoned the whole ranch part in the series that I wrote because it was a little overwhelming. So how do you find a balance between your story and the romance and everything that you're writing, and getting enough ranch in there so it actually feels like a Western?
Well, I think this is very personal and hard to define. I really concentrate more on the story and the people, and I do have as much ranch and cowboy stuff as I can, but I don't believe in overwhelming the story with too much of that.
I agree. I'm not writing a Western, I'm writing a romance. So the romance always comes first. And then I'll go, dang, I haven't put any horses in for 17 chapters, and I throw in some horseback riding.
Or hats. Yeah.
Or some hats, or somebody working on a fence. That's about my knowledge.
Always a fence.
Always a fence, yes, exactly. Okay, well, that is the end. Thank you all so much for coming. And let's give a big round of thank you to our Western cowboy romance authors here. And if you want to know more information, they're always open to talking, so just find them around here and ask them questions. That's what I did.